and welcome everyone to Transfer Weekly. This now episode number 10. We haven't done this for a couple of weeks. Welcome back to the show. The show last week slightly getting hijacked by one of our guests that's going to be on this week and for the first time because we had a huge announcement and it had to happen. Lewis Hamilton, of course, getting signed by Ferrari. We were lined up to do a Formula 2 special with Alex Jakes and Josh Revel. That show still did happen. Was a fantastic show to have on, which Jim Kimberley jumped on and hosted. And he is now here as one of our guests on Transfer Weekly for the first time. Well, we're going to be catching up on 2 weeks worth of transfers, and we have some big ones in this. So, Jim, we'll welcome you in for the very first time, one of our 2 new guests this week. Jim, great to have you on the show.
Thank you. I feel like I'm all of a sudden the tortured rather than the torturer. So interested to see how this goes. But we did really well last week, Chris, and your opinions were making the podcast return a little bit better. Hopefully I can do the same for Transfer Weekly this week.
And also joining Jim and myself, your host, Chris McCarthy, another new person. We had I guess a couple of weeks ago, we did a bit of an F4 UAE / Formula Regional Middle East special, Formula 2 special last week. This week, we're doing a Formula Winter Series special because that kicks off this weekend. It's going to be going now for the next few weeks, and huge names in it, and a huge grid as well. 38 drivers entered this weekend. I'm going to be one of the men on the ground, the man in the commentary box with us this weekend. That, of course, is Adam Weller, and he is our special guest this week. Adam, great to have you with us. You're already there. Of course, by the time this goes out, I think the cars are going to be going round, but you've been there now for a couple of days, I think. First of all, thanks for joining us. How is the atmosphere over in the paddock?
It's very good, especially in Formula Winter Seriesville. Obviously, as you said, it's the first time that we've had them in the paddock so far this year. We've had great stuff from the kind of sports car GT side of the Gidlet Racing package, but the optimism, the growth between years for the Formula Winter Series is very special.
Do stay tuned throughout the show because we're going to do a bit of a preview to that coming up with Adam, with Jim, with myself as well. But first, a big signing and a final signing in Formula 2. Grid is now complete. The final seat at PHM AIX Racing went to Taylor Barnard. I think this came as a bit of a surprise signing, but no one had any complaints about. A lot of celebrations going. Taylor jumping up from Formula 3 after a very successful season with the Genza Motorsport team, gave them their first win since 2019, their most successful season ever, Adam, and rejoins the team who he raced with in Formula 4 as well. I want to get your thoughts on this one. I mean, this a great signing, one that really I think came as a bit of a surprise given the lack of testing he did. But how did you respond to that news of Taylor Barnard completing what looks to be now the most exciting season of Formula 2 I think we're going to have in a long time?
You know, it's funny. I was talking to someone 10 days ago, maybe even less than that, about Taylor Barnard and where's he going, what's he going to do, with the crux of the conversation being, well, of all of the thorns in the side of Andrea Kimi Antonelli over the Formula 4 era, especially in ADAC, the German championship, he was the biggest one, at least certainly the biggest one not in Prema colours. He was so competitive in F4, often had brilliant scraps with Antonelli. And so, you know, someone was telling me kind of, it's not quite fair, this, is it? That Antonelli's going into F2 and Barnard's not. And then I think about 48 hours later, the announcement came along. So there you go. Antonelli and Barnard round 2.
Yeah. I mean, he's a McLaren junior as well. I think what gets overlooked is he came straight from F4 into F3, was the best performer, best F4 graduate. And now he's gone from F4 to F2 in just 2 years as well. Not far off what Antonelli has achieved as well, it has to be said, but actually very similar to what Andrea Kimi Antonelli has achieved. And comparing the two together, if we can, one more time, both of them were Nico Rosberg karting academy drivers as well when they were in karting, and now they're going to be racing each other. So Nico Rosberg had an eye for talent, didn't he? And I think that's something he will maybe say when he's doing his punditry work this season. Okay, let's go to another PHM AIX racing driver because they completed their seats, Jim, over in Formula 3 as well with Nikita Bedrin, who performed very well alongside Taylor over at Genza Motorsport, taking some podiums along the way this season on his way to 18th at Hungary and Spa. He was very much part, I think, giving Genza that best season, wasn't he? And he's been a little busy since Formula 3 as well. It was, I guess, some people maybe a little bit worried that he was going to be missing out on a seat. So this came as very good news that he's back and with a team that looked to have a real presence going into this season.
Yeah, I'm really interested in hearing or seeing how, should I say, how PHM AIX, to give them their full title as they have now, how they're going to do across the championships, because the whole concept is quite fascinating. They're trying to nurture the drivers, from essentially the kart all the way to F2 as it is at the moment, and good on them. And I think we saw in Genza, got to remember it's not the same team, that these two drivers that we're speaking of at the moment did so well. And Taylor was always, I guess, better thought of in some ways because of the background he had and the stuff you both mentioned. And so for me, at least, Nikita was a bit more of a surprise package, but it just seemed to be between the two of them throughout the year that you start seeing them appear. And I'm sure you know this, Chris, commentating on the timing tower in positions where I wouldn't expect them to be. Someone like Willie Martello was a couple of years ago that, there's a Genza logo. I'm not used to seeing that in F3. So I'm hopeful that this PHM move, which should be a bit of a step up, will help. But I think if Nikita can do what he did last year in the Genza, then there's no reason why he can't do even better with all that experience behind him in PHM as they grow. I've got to remember the team Sherwood, where they've picked up the pieces of, are well established, so they know what they're doing. So it's a good combination. I don't think it's a championship fight, but I don't think it needs to be a championship fight to be a successful season. So massively curious to see what he does, and I could imagine a few more podiums coming in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, he's already been doing that. He got one when he came into FRECA at the end of the season, and he's third as we record this on the Thursday, the 8th, in F4 UAE as well. So their grids are now complete. I mean, Taylor's going to be alongside Josh Dirksen in F2, and Nikita, Josh Dufek, and Taz Inchafuvazak as well. So some pretty solid lineups across the board there for PHM Racing, and best of luck to them in both F2 and F3 as they look to move forward and up the championship standings. Okay, let's go from PHM to Genza. Adam, this driver I know that you're familiar with, someone who was rumoured for a long time that he was going to be taking this seat, but now official news a couple of weeks ago that Charlie Wurz is confirmed at Genza Motorsport, making the move from FRECA/Euro Formula Open up to Formula 3, where he'll be joining Matthias Zagazzetta and Max Esterson. Had a bit of a split season, didn't he? I guess you can't really take a championship result for him because he did a mixture of both, but got some good results across the board. But one place he did impress, Adam, was at the Macau Grand Prix, a 6th place finish for him there. And I think that's where he, I guess, really put his status down for Genza and said, I'm going to do some business and keep this for you next year, keep the momentum rolling for you next season.
Yeah, exactly. It's certainly, faith in a driver doesn't come from many grander sources than a decent result at Macau. And it was a decent result. I'm interested to see how that combination of Genza and Charlie Wurz actually gel together. I've always found Charlie a little bit difficult to read. I think going back to his F4 days when I was covering him there, he would have some incredible days. He would also have days where he was maybe a little bit off what we're expecting him to achieve. But it's great to see him continue to progress. I think there was a little bit of I guess, itchy feet almost, just making sure he does enough to secure that step up towards the end of last year. I know that when he was running Euro Formula at Red Bull Ring, there were a lot of local sponsors present with the microscope firmly traced on him. And obviously he's done enough. He's continued to get the funding, get the investment, and get the support. And, well, yeah, we'll see how he does on his debut on the F1 package.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. I think that move to Euro Formula definitely upped his confidence where he was struggling in FRECA with that 6th place at Macau. Definitely confirmation to that. So best of luck. And Matthias, Max, Charlie, a solid lineup there for Genza. Okay, let's go to the news. I think everyone's waiting for us to talk about. We're going to finish our Formula 3 transfers with the one that I think that's arguably got probably the biggest response, and that came at MP Motorsport when it was confirmed that their final seat, which everyone didn't know where it was going to go, did they? But it finally came out that it was confirmed that their final seat was taken by Irishman Alex Dunne. He becomes the first driver from Ireland to fly the flag in the Formula 3 Championship. Makes the jump up, Jim, from the GB3 Championship, where he was vice champion last year. Came in for 1 day of postseason testing, was 11th overall with High Tech there. Of course, that's who we raced with last season. Went over and raced in Macau as well. Was impressive there. And he completes a lineup of himself and 2 Red Bull juniors at MP now. Tim Tramnitz and Kasper Stuka. This is turning into a fantastic lineup, but a great result for Alex Dunne. Let's speak about him himself first, because a lot of people were wanting to see him on the grid, and now that's been confirmed.
It's huge. I'm so happy, both for actually Taylor and Alex here, that talent is actually shining through, because we know full well that it's not always talent that gets you seats. And you look at the results that Alex has had the last little while, the last few seasons, and you try and tell me that that's not a driver that was deserving of an F3 graduation. And believe me, I don't think from the conversations I've had, it was anything but certain. Quite a lot. You can tell at this point in the season, we're going to preseason testing the next few days. The drivers are heading out there as we're recording. Some will be on a plane. And you're getting to that point in the year that you know this was a last minute call, and props to everybody involved with Alex, because he is a solid act. Everyone's now got this, is Kimi Antonelli going to replace Lewis Hamilton? And you've got to think, this kid a couple of years ago was pushing Antonelli in a car that, let's face it, US Racing and Italian F4 wasn't quite the level of Prema, the supremacy of Prema and the Antonelli combination. And Alex, I was just looking while you were talking at the 2022 Italian F4 Championship. Alex beat out Rafael Camara, Charlie Wurz, Kasper Suker, Martinius Stenson, Taylor Barnard, all these drivers, Nikita Bedrin, all the drivers we've actually been speaking about. And he beat them. I went to GB3. And also, it's my first time on the show. I want to have a little shout out to the other GB3 drivers, Joseph Loke and Callum Boyson, making the step up as well. It's just this talent going into it, and Alex is the epitome of that. And what will happen from here on out with MP Motorsport, who are becoming a big, strong outfit across F2 and F3. You look at what Franco Colapinto did last year. I'm really excited to see what they can do. They've got a stellar lineup. Alex is part of that, and we saw with that P2 in the qualifying, we won't mention the race at Macau with Alex, that he is. You've got to bear in mind that was the first time he's going in that car, and again, a bit of a last minute thing. He is a talent, and who knows what could happen from here on out. So this is turning into, in both F2 and F3, brilliant lineups, brilliant grids, and I'm so excited to see what happens in both championships this year.
I mean, MP Motorsport, they're really dark horses now this season, aren't they? They've got two Red Bull juniors, and let's say one of which really got his backing in Kasper there after what was an incredible run to the title, coming from 140 points back. And then Alex getting a deserved seat. I mean, yes, it came late, but I think that was a really hard-earned seat, wasn't it? One that came after maybe that Macau performance, combined with his GB3 performance as well.
Yeah, I've got to say, there's a lot of backpacking for Alex to actually perform and do what he's done, but then there's also the backing behind him. I know I spoke to his father Noel, and the amount of work that he's doing behind the scenes as well to get his kid into where he should be. And he should be, if Kimi Antonelli is in F2 and he was pushing Kimi Antonelli for that sort of seat, and now Taylor Barnard is in F2, and he's almost playing catch up a little bit. But I think with the spotlight that F3 will bring, and with F1 teams that we know they watch the feeder series, and with Kimi Antonelli in it this year, I think the spotlight's really going to shine on both F2 and F3. that some solid performances, not just by Alex, and I expect that will be the case, but by anybody on the grid could be picked up and could turn into an academy seat, an F1 driver, a reserve driver. You just don't know what's going to happen this year. The stakes couldn't be any higher.
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember when I first walked into the FIA karting paddock in 2018 in Sano, I saw Alex Dunne. He was the first driver I saw. He was racing for a team called Forza Racing. They're not a factory team, and his dad was cleaning his car and he did all the spanners for him that year. And that, I guess, shows you that, that they were a little lower on the budget than the other drivers. I think that, when you get to that level and you're, racing the factory drivers, it was him and his dad, kind of taking on some of the big names against the likes of Paul Aron, Dino Beganovic, and Gabriele Mini were on the podium that race, just to give you an idea. So, yeah, really happy for him. Best of luck to him along with the guys he's racing against. Okay, Adam, back to you. We'll go through some of these ones a little bit quicker, I guess. This one in particular. We're gonna one of them. Before we come back to you, Jim, let's go through this one. We've talked a lot about this guy in our last one, but we do want to cover this because Ollie Bearman, who we talked about in our last show, has gone to Ferrari, but he's also now joined Haas F1 team as a reserve driver as well. 6 FP1 sessions, I think it was also announced. I mean, he's getting really close, isn't he, to confirming himself on this 2025 grid, isn't he, Adam? It's the work he's been putting in. This F2 season is getting even more important for him now, isn't it?
It absolutely is, yeah. I think it's going to be very intriguing to see quite where he ends up. Part of me suspects that his midterm fate might depend on whether Gene Haas wants to continue to spend money on Formula One cars or not. We'll have to see what happens there. Obviously, Hamilton's signing rather signs that a fully red car isn't in his imminent future. But a talent like Ollie Bearman has to be someone that gets into an F1 seat sooner rather than later. As long as this season goes, somewhat smoothly, wins, championship fight, you'd have to get him in a seat somewhere, surely.
Yeah, he's doing an absolutely fantastic job, and it's just making this F2 season even more vital, isn't it? So big things to come for Ollie Bearman. I know a lot of support in this country, as there is from Ferrari and now Haas fans as well. Okay, let's finish our transfers with yourself, Jim, because F1 Academy team MP Motorsport, who we were just talking about, made a big announcement with their F1 Academy team as well. They announced all 3 drivers. No changes for them. Exact same lineup coming in. Amna and Hamda Al-Kibasi, Emily De House as well. I guess the only change is that 2 of their drivers, Hamda and Emily, are going to carry the Red Bull Racing livery. Amna will carry the RB livery, if that's what we'll go with name-wise for this as well. So solid lineup. I mean, Hamda comes in as the highest seeded driver. Emily, 9th overall last year. Amna was 6th as well. So coming in with 2 drivers who have taken wins, all 3 who are in the top 10. I mean, they've got similar to F2 and F3, they've got a really solid lineup there.
I'm curious to see the consistency in F1 Academy this year, because they have got, you say, the exact same lineup, albeit with some Red Bull backing behind the drivers. I'm not sure exactly on the agreements because I don't even know the second team's name, let alone his agreements. But let's see where that goes. That was probably going to be outdated by the time this goes out. I think it's getting announced as we speak. But there's what F1 Academy had last year was very much an introductory season, and I think it was a little bit of let's test the waters, and then going into the second season, the actual coverage should be a little bit more improved. I was fortunate enough to be able to see some of it when I was in Barcelona last year. I actually saw Emily take that sole victory. And I wonder just how much that's going to really benefit the team as a whole, because it's not like F1 that they've got an entire new, probably carbon fiber livery of development. This is just the same spec series, and it's the same team. There'll be some different mechanics, but fundamentally MP Motorsport have this consistent lineup with all 3 of them, all proven race winners, to know how things will go. I don't know how F1 Academy will change with regards to the weekends format and things like that, which is it's gonna be busy this Grand Prix weekends coming up, but they've got a solid lineup. I think you have to look at Hamda as a championship. No, I don't know if I'll say favourite, but she's definitely got to be the championship favourite because of the returning drivers. But you look at the quality of the other drivers coming in particular Dorian, that you think
Yeah.
this is going to be a right fight. So
Yeah.
you think that Emily and Amna will take that step up this year? I'm not sure if they'll be at the same level as Hamda, but they're certainly going to be better than they were in that first season. And if that's the case, we're going to have a cracking championship on our hands and possibly a cracking fight between the MP drivers themselves.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, Dorian, like her and Maya are going to be leading the charge where they are, aren't they? And Hamda is definitely going to have a target on her back,
And you
being
can't
top seed.
rule out Abby. We know how good
Yeah,
Abby is.
of
It
course.
never really fully worked out last year. It's
So
starting to look extremely competitive.
we're going to have F1 cars racing very, very closely together, and Hamda is going to be carrying the Red Bull livery, so no pressure there. So yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. But MP, as they have been in F2 and F3, have got a really solid lineup, and they've got the top seeded driver. So best of luck to them. It only leaves 4 seats left in F1 Academy, and we'll cover them here. Okay, let's go to yourself, Adam. We got a couple of stories for you now before we get to our preview. Kyle Collett, let's talk quickly about him. He's going stateside, Indy next with HMD Motorsports. 3 F3 seasons, and now he's going on to the road to Indy. How do you take it when drivers make that step, Adam? Are you a fan of drivers heading to road to Indy? It seems to be becoming more popular now.
Yeah, that's the first thing to raise is, look back all through much of the 2010s, Indy Lights looked a little bit barren at times. And over the last few years, they've really done a good job of rejuvenating it. Now, of course, with the Indy NXT, Indy Next rebrand. And for Kaio, I think this is a wise move. I like seeing drivers make that attempt to go stateside. Not sure there was a home for him in Formula 2, so it makes a lot of sense to me that he would go there. And I think he strikes me as someone who'll thrive in that environment. I would think 2 seasons at max, and he'll be sniffing around for IndyCar seats. I think he's made a good call here.
And of course, a feel-good story, 63-year-old Hichiro Osaka in Japanese F4. That's one to bring a smile to your face, isn't it? But one that didn't. Ralph Boschung, Jim, hanging up his boots as well after 7 seasons in Formula 2. A shame to hear that, but we wish him all the best, I guess, in whatever he takes on next. He did a really fantastic job during his time there. He did take that win at the Bahrain Sprint, 106 starts, 6 podiums as well. But Ralph Boschung putting out that post after the final seat was taken that unfortunately it looks like maybe he's going to take a step back from the sport. Who knows, completely or just for now. Okay, let's preview Formula Winter Series with yourself, Adam. That's, of course, being our special guest, one of the main reasons we got you in as well. 38 drivers entered this weekend compared to, I think it was, 9 they had last year for the first round. Some F1 juniors entered. Enzo Tarvinichkul from Red Bull, Bianca Bustamante from McLaren, Mateus Ferreira from Alpine, Leah Block from Williams, Carrie Schreiner from Sauber. I mean, you got some world karting champions in there. You got reigning FIA European karting champion Rene Lammers. I mean, it's given what Kasper Stuka done last year as reigning champion, he's on the grid for F3 this year. I mean, tell us what we can expect, not just for this weekend, as this might be out by then. We'll be on track. What we can expect as a season.
Well, just firstly to say Enzo is not 15 until after Valencia, the second round, so he'll be joining us from Aragon onwards. But yeah, in general, this is going to be a really, really interesting season. You've got those coming up from karting. You've got people in their second, third year of F4 who, on paper should have the experience to thrive. We're talking about favorites in the media office over the last few days, and it's very much just become name half the grid, then kind of shrug and go, that doesn't really narrow it down, does it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be intriguing. And obviously, the story of having Leah Block here for her first single-seater racing appearances after plenty of test mileage, it's going to be interesting to see quite where she ends up. I was watching some of the times today in some of the practice sessions that are already taking place, recording, of course, on Thursday. And yeah, it looks like she's adapting nicely. I noted they were doing a seat fit and kind of making adjustments in the garage this evening post session. So I think getting to grips with the car, getting comfortable in the car in more ways than one.
I mean, your general views for the season ahead? Of course, we got them there, but you've wearing the Giedlick Racing top there. Tell us about the work that the guys have put in there. That's, of course, the team behind all of this, what they've put in to make this happen, because it's a huge step forward the championship's made, and a great place for the likes of Leah to get up to speed before F1 Academy, and the likes of, you mentioned Enzo, to jump in before he goes off and does something like Spanish F4.
Yeah, it's the work they've put in over the course of the off-season, winter series off-season, otherwise known as the racing season, is phenomenal. It was announced quite late, the Formula Wind series heading into 2023 for the first season, and also the Spanish Formula 4 Championship at the time had a testing ban that effectively limited who could enter. That's all been rectified and negotiated. Everyone is now able to compete thanks to a partnership with the Spanish F4 Championship. And in general, the team have done so much work to just, make this all happen. And yeah, you can't say enough for the efforts that they've put in, because clearly, they've taken a major step forward, not just with FWS, but of course 4 championships in total now, up from 2 last year. They're biting off a big chunk, but seemingly they can chew it.
So some great circuits as well. When you mentioned Aragon there, Jerez, Valencia, Barcelona, some brilliant circuits across the board. One of them being an F1 Academy circuit as well for the drivers that we've been talking about there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Barcelona clashes with Saudi, so our FWS, the F1 Academy drivers, will disappear after Aragon. I have been meaning to ask them if they'll all be on the same flight or something, maybe just share a row. But I think with the F1 Academy drivers in particular, it's going to be a compelling watch, because obviously, the argument is made as to, well, F1 Academy, should they separate the female young talent from the male young talent, we do get to see them in, F4 UAE compete alongside and stuff like that. And now we get it in Europe as well. And, we've seen from the likes of Dorian Pain currently in F4 UAE, Bianca herself, she did a solid job at Macau in a Formula 4 car in November. We're getting to see quite where the leading lights in F1 Academy stack up. And I think it's quite impressive.
But overall, some great tracks, a great variety of tracks. I think for all the drivers prepping for whatever they're going to go on and do. I mean, we've got, I think this looks like a great breeding ground to then go on and race in either Italian, Spanish, French F4, whatever they're getting ready to go and do next, it seems like. And speaking to the drivers today, what's been the general feedback you've been getting so far?
Well, the general feedback about this track in particular, and the racing in particular, has been those first couple of corners are going to be fun, aren't they? With 38 of us, it's going to be, it's going to be a hostile negotiation into the first couple of corners. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I mean, there are, everyone I've spoken to about Aragon raves about it. They've either done it in the sim to prepare and they want to go in real life, or they've had a go in real life and now they want another go in real life. So that's a circuit that's coveted. Barcelona, of course, so many of these kids have their eyes laser focused on Formula One, and they're like, that's a Grand Prix venue. I couldn't be happier. And Valencia as well, great circuit for overtaking as well. You can often go side by side, 3 or 4 corners in a row there. There's bits of data, bits of driving knowledge and racecraft to be picked up from all circuits.
And this, of course, one where one of their heroes may have stood on the top step: Ayrton Senna, Nigel Mansell, Alan Prost, Jerez. And I think track time, isn't it? Track time is a big one for Formula Winter Series and the Giedlick Racing team. They go very big. So I guess a great step for the karting drivers who are stepping up as well.
Yeah, unrivaled platform when it comes to track time. They're going to get a lot of mileage under the belt. Of course, a lot of these drivers will be doing private testing as well. But obviously the cloaks are fully taken down in FWS. These sessions are competitive sessions, and so who's in every car. And at these private tests, that's not always necessarily the case unless you send a trainee engineer snooping to go pick out some helmets. I think it's so and so in that car. Interesting. So it's a very, very compelling environment in the sense that it is competitive. Very much its own championship. And track time is one thing, but also Kasper Stuka, would he have gotten the seats that he got in the summer if he didn't win FWS? It's proven that, a victory in FWS can, bump you up for the summer season and start you on a very good trajectory.
Well, that's a great insight. Thank you very much, Adam. I will see you at the track when I get there. Thanks for coming on the show as well. Thank you, Jim, as well, for being a guest. You did a great job as a guest, I have to say. But don't do it too often. Keep going back and do the podcast, please. We'll be back. We're going to do, I think, 2 more of our show. Bring it to the start of the F2 and F3 season. Then we'll be back with a FRECA special like we did last time. And I know Jim is going to do some F2 and F3 season previews as well. So look out for those. But that's been all for episode 10. We'll be back same time next week for episode 11. Thank you for watching.